Howdy. Today is September 21st, 2022. And a couple things. I'm right on the edge of where the settled energy field of the planet has begun to expand in the last 16 hours. And I'm now, hey there, it's expanded since 3:51 p.m. yesterday afternoon. It has expanded 14 miles. This edge of it. That means that altogether that's 28 miles. The whole swath of the Emperor Dragon Settled Energy Line that runs from California to Virginia has expanded approximately 28 miles since yesterday. And the projection is that it's moving at a rate of about 0.88 miles per hour. And at that rate, each edge of it, before this started, I have been monitoring it for the past 10 days, the northern edge of it. Before this, it was two what we call Emperor Dragon lines, subtle energy lines, that have been expanding steadily at different rates since the equinox of 2020. And I first measured them at the solstice of the winter solstice of December solstice of 2019. At that time, they were 19 paces, they were 50 paces wide. As of March, they were 4 miles wide. At the end of the Harmony period in June, they were 92 miles wide, and had begun to overlap one another. So what were two parallel lines, approximately 40 to 50 miles apart, overlapped in June, actually the beginning of July, and then they stopped moving, they stopped expanding. They were 92 miles wide. That meant that from the center line, the former center line, they were 46 miles to the edge. And altogether, the two combined were 136 miles wide, going coast to coast and around the world. And so were all the other Emperor Dragon lines on the planet, of which there are 6 pairs, or were 6 pairs. Now there's 6 swaths that were, up until yesterday, 136 miles wide. Good morning, afternoon-ish. It's 12:12. And it's 12:12 on 9/21/22. How about that? Let me finish this, what I'm saying, and then I'll add you up, okay? So there is, up until yesterday, they were 100, the whole swath, combined twin Emperor Dragon lines were 136 miles wide, all 6 pairs around the world. Now they're growing at a rate of approximately 20, the edges are 20 miles a day, so they're between 38 and 40 miles a day altogether. If the pattern holds to what's happened in the past couple of solstices and equinoxes. The expansion will continue until what we call the end of the harmony period. The harmony period actually starts on the solstice or equinox. It's when all of the ley lines are vibrating on the planet, whether they're generated by the sun, the Earth, or the galaxies and the 6 galaxies in our galactic neighborhood. They all vibrate at the same frequency for a certain period, and that period has expanded since about 2008, 2010, from being 1 day to now 18 days as of June. And it's projected that it will be at least 18 days this time. So at the June solstice, it was vibrating at the same. They were all the lands on the planet were vibrating at the same frequency. The whole matrix was vibrating at the same frequency for what turned out to be the 18 days of the harmony period, and it started expanding 5 days before the solstice. This time, it started vibrating. They started to coalesce and vibrate at the same frequency at 2 days before the equinox. So you add the 2 days to the 18 days projected harmony period, and you have 20 days. If it continues to expand at the rate of 0.88 miles per day, it's the edges are expanding at 0.88 miles. The whole thing, the whole swath is expanding at a rate of 1.6 miles per hour. And thus a rate of 38 to 40 miles a day. Then, you figure, you do the math, and you figure in 10 days, that's a lot of miles. That's 400 miles. In 20 days, you're looking at 930 miles, 36 miles, something like that. So this harmony period is going to result in where I'm sitting right now is actually in the Monterey node. Even though I'm something like 59 miles north of the node in Monterey, it extends to this far, and it's not over. It's going to keep expanding until, as I said, from 18 days from tomorrow, and most likely. And essentially all of California is going to be, except for a couple of little edges in the north, it's going to extend all the way down into Baja California. And when it does that, it's that same distance all the way across the country. So the United States is about to be subsumed within the subtle energy field. And the eastern part of the country, which includes, especially Washington, D.C., is going to be covered by 2 emperor dragons, because there's one that goes north and south from the North Pole to the South Pole and back. And it's the same width, same story is happening, the expansion. And what is about to, I would guess that San Francisco is probably going to be in the energy within a week, Los Angeles within a week and a half, and DC somewhere in between there. So definitely by the end of the harmony period, within the next 3 weeks. Um, so it should be very interesting to watch the news and see how this affects the world. Um, I can get into, in another one of these videos, I can get into what I've observed. I would expect there to be an increase in serotonin secretions, pineal gland stimulation, and all that that implies. So you're looking at like increased pattern recognition, heightened awareness, hyper consciousness. Those potentials are present, and a fair amount of confusion, because what may have worked before in our lives probably isn't going to work as well, especially our coping mechanisms, whatever we're using to mask things, especially the things that we may have been trying to mask since we were kids. And so imagine whole populations doing their unconsciously doing inner child work, and resolving childhood trauma and whatnot. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's the good thing is we're kind of being, preparing ourselves. In the presence of love, what is not love rises to be healed, a friend of mine once told me. So there's that. Okay. I have something else I want to get into in a bit. So here we go. Cool. All right. So I wrote up, I'm on the PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, probably about 15 miles south of Half Moon Bay. I'm looking over and I can see the radar tracking station, NASA radar tracking station that's on the north side of Half Moon Bay from here. So yeah, we're about 15 miles away. And I want to take a moment and acknowledge something personal. A year ago today, I received word of the passage of my dear friend and former lover, Honora Shostak. And she was brutally murdered. I won't go into the particulars, but it's pretty grisly. And you could not have found a more compassionate person. She was a naturopathic doctor and mother of a 2-year-old son, and one of the most beautiful people I've ever known, both physically, emotionally, spiritually. And it's funny because there is this Native American tradition of when somebody dies, especially if they die of violent circumstances or challenging circumstances, instead of like old age or whatever natural causes. There's this process called keeping another person's spirit, keeping someone's spirit. And it's a year-long process. And I have a friend that did this for a friend of theirs that committed suicide. And what you do is you build an altar, and every time that you eat or you drink, you make an offering on the altar. And the whole idea is that you're feeding that person's spirit with your thought forms to help provide them with the energy that they need from the physical plane to rise up. Because it was understood that we live on the physical plane, and it has weight, and our prayers and thoughts and feelings can affect the subtle energy field, the subtler realms of existence. And so the idea of mana, that even with food or water, there's the physical component of it, but then there's the mana, the energy that comes, the spiritual energy that can be transferred through it. And so that's what you're providing the deceased with. And it's funny. I keep saying it's funny. It's not. There's nothing funny about it. It's an odd coincidence that we hadn't been lovers in almost 20 years, but we were pretty close. And I had just spoken with her like 2 weeks before. I was passing through where she lived in West Virginia, and I called to see if it was a good time to visit, and it turned out not to be. And unfortunately, we were making plans to meet up on the road and caravan together and all this. And a year ago today, I got a text from a mutual friend of what had happened. And that was my equinox. That's how I began the equinox, and doing these measurements last year. Because I was parked in the node in Big Sur at the time. So the funny part is, I've unconsciously, I've been celibate for the past year since this happened, and yeah. So I felt it was important to mark this moment, and do whatever I can to, help lift her up, and especially her family, her son, and her mother and brother who survive her. And I know that they're in a lot of pain right now. And I don't know what else I can say, but I just wanted to mark the moment, as you do in these things. So, giving it up. Stay tuned. I'll be, passing this information on, and keeping people posted on what's happening with the survey over the next couple of weeks and further. I recommend that you check out my man Rory McQuestion, who has an account here on Instagram called The Geobiologist. I always tell people that his posts are like a master class in the subtle energy field of the planet, and dowsing and all that. So, love and light.